Dr. Gail Humphreys Martirosian, Dean for the School of Creative and Performing Arts at Stephens College. And here we are in historic Senior Hall.
And I'm Rob Dorian. I'm an actor teacher here at Stephens, and I teach acting and directing, and I'm also an actor in the Playhouse shows, and happy to be here.
And we collaborated to generate an exciting production fitting for Stephens College, because this production and original work, we're committed to new works, honored the legacy of women throughout the history of the state of Missouri from multiple professions.
Yes, and I think the diversity of those women, the diversity of women, whether they had been involved in government or the arts or in education, and you're a big backer in arts and education, you wrote a book about it. So the combination of all those, just the power of those women that was exhibited on that afternoon when the audience was there, and you could just feel the charisma from across, and the audience appreciation of the women, powerful women in Missouri were represented there.
I was struck as we developed the piece with students just meeting in my office, reading aloud various writings and historical data about the women, how fascinating it was to go from someone like Rebecca Boone, a pioneer and a rough, rugged woman, to Ann Covington, who has been a legal pioneer and is on our board of trustees here at Stephens.
Yes. And I think it's apropos that with the bicentennial celebration that this is occurring during that time, as are many other events to celebrate the bicentennial of Boone County. It was quite the right time to have this happen.
Here, and to celebrate women's right to vote, and to work with wonderful folk in this community who really believe in all the same things that we do. I have to thank Colleen Butler, who first came to me with the book, Show Me Missouri Women, and said, maybe you could do something with this. And Chris Barnes, who worked with us so beautifully to present the production.
And then true collaboration, was it not, Gail?
Yes.
With Tom Andes created the music, Travis played the music for us.
And our costume design students and costume supervisor here at Stephens,
Carrie Packer, yes,
created historically accurate costumes. The other thing about Show Me Missouri Women that emerged is how many women were the first to do something, whether we're talking about 18th century, modern, or contemporary society in multiple fields. And there were scientists that had emerged, Nobel Prize winners that were women from Missouri that I wasn't even aware of.
Yes, and not only the professions that they were in, but the fact that these women rose to the top without the women's movement having started. It was just such powerful women, and so dedicated to what they did that they had a force and a focus about what they wanted to do and how they wanted to influence their position and what they were doing for humanity, that they rose above it all, and they're really icons and role models for us here at Stephens College, Women's College, role models for all the young women here.
And Stephens College 10 Ideals always were something that held my anchoring here in my work as a dean. And as we researched all these women, we found that they were the embodiment over time of the ideals. And here we are looking at the legacy of Stephens College.
And many women in portraits here that have been leaders at Stephens College, and not only leaders at the college, but leaders in the community and the state as well.
We are the ones who gave you all the courage to succeed.
acclaimed concert pianist, as well as teacher to hundreds of students in central Missouri.
A serious and sensitive performer, the New York Times.
Clarity of detail accompanies digital dexterity, the New York Herald Tribune.
She's great. Miss Tally will hold any audience spellbound throughout any recital. Arkansas State Press.
Tally thrills big audience, Nashville, Tennessean.
Best recital of the year.
Vancouver Press.
I was named Missouri Woman of Achievement in 1964. I don't know if I deserve to join the ranks of the other distinguished women who have also earned this award. One was the mother of a governor, another a wife of a governor, and frankly, I have no relations to any governor. Music is my family's legacy, from my father to me to eventually my son. The piano was my beautiful friend, reliable, solid, but with the lightest voice. I took my first piano lesson when I was just 5 years old, and I continued to play for over 50 years. The piano became an extension of myself. But however glamorous traveling to beautiful concert halls all over the country might sound, I was always happiest when I was teaching. The passion of my students inspired me every day. And even when I had to slow down, my son, Tom, was there to carry the torch. And I know he will continue our family's legacy of teaching music.
We will endure. Maude Adams, 1872 to 1953, the First Lady of the American Theater. Best known for her role on Broadway as the very first Peter Pan, among numerous other roles, and as the head of the Stevens College Theater Department.
The First Lady of the American Theater. I often said I was married to the theater. I was an idol to millions, from playing Peter Pan to Joan of Arc and modeling as a Gibson girl. Once, I rode a white steed into a stadium at Harvard and brought a crowd to their feet. My career began in 1877 at the ripe age of 5, when I was dubbed La Petite Maud.
Ooh, La Petite Maud.
Oui. When I was 16, I took on ingenue roles at the E.H. Southern Troupe, and from there I just kept rising and working and learning all the while. I have always believed that the arts belong in a high place in society, so in 1937 I became the head of the Stevens College Theater Program. There I was able to pass on the importance of an art form which I loved so much to another generation. Many thought of me as shy. I was always the I want to be alone woman. But when I stepped onto the stage, I blossomed. Though I did have other hobbies, I helped to develop incandescent electrical lighting for theater that had General Electric and Eastman Kodak knocking on my door. Who says there can't be a brain behind a pretty face? If you go to Stevens College, you'll see that one of my light fixtures is being kept safe at the lovely school. And if you look at the very back of the theater, the Mecklenburg, that is, you'll see my portrait hanging to watch over the generations of wonderful women to grace the Mecklenburg stage.
Joan Crawford, 1906 to 1977, the first queen of movies. A film and television actress who grew up in Kansas City and was a former student of Stevens College.
Oh, Stevens College. I remember it well. And First Lady of the American Theater. Try film royalty. But I did not become queen in a day, no. I had to work my way to the top. Before I could live in Hollywood, I had to work for room and board at my convent school, and then later at Stevens College.
Did you know I was rejected from a sorority there? I'd like to think they've come to regret that decision. Growing up, I was always shunned for the hand-me-down clothes that I wore. Who knew that one day I would grace the red carpet in beautiful gowns? The best revenge is living well. I am Lucille Fay Lejour. Some call me Bill Cassin, but you may call me Joan Crawford.
Joan Crawford.
When I was a child, I stepped on a broken glass bottle, severing tendons and an artery in my foot. I was told I would never walk without a limp again. Imagine telling that to a girl who dreamed of dancing. Well, not only did I walk without a limp, but I went on to dance in the chorus line for Catherine Ermine in Springfield, Missouri. And from there, I climbed the ladder until all of Hollywood knew my name.
Joan Crawford. Rebecca Boone.
1737 to 1813. A woman of the frontier, wife of Daniel Boone.
You probably think you know everything about me because my name is so familiar. I am Rebecca Boone, and even now I hold mysteries. My husband, Daniel Boone, you probably know more about him, but I like to think I was a better shot than he ever was. I had to protect our kids. Daniel was away so often either for hunting or traveling that I was our family's only defense along the frontier. Sometimes, even that wasn't enough. My youngest died during the last battle for the Revolutionary War. I can fight off marauders all day long to protect the ones I love, but I can't control what happens to them when they leave home. That's the hardest part. They are what makes the frontier less lonely.
They are what makes the frontier less lonely.
Sarah Wybark.
1848 to sometime after 1865. A Civil War pioneer woman.
People said I was pretty, but looks can only get you so far. Looks can't satisfy a desire to do, to spin, to sew, to weave. To spin, to sew, to weave, to spin, to sew, to weave. To dig my hands into the soil. Busy hands help you more than a pretty face ever will. My name is Sarah Wybark, and I grew up in a world of marauders, bushwhackers, and guerrillas. We lived in fear every day that a raid would come and loot all of our belongings. So, we had a system. My parents and my sister Harriet would hide food and clothing in the walls, while my little sister Casper would hide pots and pans under the floorboards. Rowena and I would take the horses out into the woods and hide there until it was safe. It became a routine, one that we repeated over and over again, choreographed down to the last spoon. Shirley Drew Hardwick.
1913 to 2004. A nationally recognized horsewoman from Missouri who greatly contributed to equestrian education in the United States.
My passion in life was also a family affair. And much like you, I was also the head of a department at Stevens College. Riding and training horses and their riders is in my blood. My mother, Caroline Drew, was the head of the Equestrian Studies program at Christian College, which I suppose now you'd call Columbia College. And my father was a professional horseman. My parents were an unstoppable team. I learned so much from them. And after spending 5 years with the Red Cross during World War II, I became the head of the equestrian program at Stevens College, and remained there for 33 years.
33 years!
During which time it became the most extensive, most admired program in the nation.
Protectors, fighters, creators, survivors. Helen Stevens,
1918 to 1994, an American athlete and double Olympic champion from Fulton, Missouri.
Did you know I ran all the way from Fulton, Missouri to Berlin? Okay, no I didn't. But I did run side by side with Jesse Owens in the 1936 Berlin Olympics and won the gold medal, which qualified me as the fastest woman in the world. The Fulton Flash! At least, that's what they started calling me. I guess I've always just waited for the rest of the world to speed up a little to match my pace. Did you know Hitler hit on me once? I didn't know whether to be flattered or terrified. And the FBI has a file with my name on it. J. Edgar Hoover kept it in his desk himself. I don't feel qualified to represent the sexy, petite female usually required for publicity purposes. I am 6 foot tall, 190 pounds, which is not fat. I have a husky voice. I live with my roommate. I have a cat. Call me if you're interested. I don't know whether it was because of my ability or my height, but I faced people questioning my gender my whole life. My first contact with discrimination was when I was a child and I realized my father wanted a boy to help with the farm work. So I became a tomboy. I joined the Marines, and after the war, I worked for the Defense Mapping Aerospace Center. My passions led me to the women's movement, where I fought for Title IX. But my life, it wouldn't have meant a damn thing if I hadn't met my Mabel. 40 years of pure bliss with the light of my life.
Anne Hawkins Gentry,
1791 to 1870, the second woman in the nation to be appointed a postmaster. I rode a skittish, thoroughbred racing mare all the way from Madison County, Kentucky to Missouri, with my baby girl right there in front of me on the saddle. Nothing was going to stop us from starting a new life in Missouri. When we arrived in Columbia, we established a tavern and a post office right between 7th and 8th Street, where Broadway stands today. My husband, Richard, took a liking to politics, but when that bored him, the military was ready to welcome him with open arms. He was always such an adventurer. It figures that he would die from a battle wound, but I would rather be a brave man's widow than a coward's wife. My name is Anne Hawkins Gentry, and I was the second woman in the nation to be appointed a postmaster.
a postmaster.
No matter what the politics of the president, they kept reappointing me until my retirement in 1865. My family was always my first priority. My 13 children were my world. That's why it hurt so much when the Civil War divided us right down the middle. Now, I sided with the North, but I think it was the pressure of living in the South that influenced my younger children. It all came down to politics back then. I see nothing has changed, including the fact that my post office still stands today. Anyway, no matter what happened in my life, I did what I had to do, without complaining and with
1942, the first woman Chief Justice of the Missouri Supreme Court.
My name is Anne Covington, and I know more than most that it's not easy to break into the boys' club. They keep their ranks pretty tight. It didn't keep me from becoming the first woman Chief Justice on the Missouri Supreme Court, though. I grew up in Fairmont, West Virginia, where I graduated high school and then went on to get my Bachelor of Arts degree in English at Duke University. I got married, moved across the ocean to Oxford, England, where I taught at an elementary school. From there, we moved back to Columbia in 1968, where I worked as a teaching assistant in Shakespeare at the University of Missouri, and also in the Women's Studies program at Stevens College.
Stevens, our Stevens, hail to thee. We'll praise thy name through all eternity. Light and ideals will live so you can see that dear, dear old Stevens, we hail to thee.
But eventually, my desire to continue learning myself was too strong. So I went from teacher to student and received the Doctor of Law degree from the University of Missouri. I began my legal career in Jefferson City, but eventually moved back to Columbia, where I became one of two partners in the first all-women law firm in Columbia. Now, I'm on the board of trustees at Stevens College.
What was it like to be the first?
It wasn't the fact that I was first that was important. It's that I did not want to be the last.
Optimistic.
Realistic.
Idealistic. Muriel Battle.
1930 to 2003, an educator and school administrator who worked to improve job opportunities, housing, and civil rights for the students and citizens of Columbia.
My name tells you just about everything you need to know. My husband and I fought all our lives to improve education, civil rights, housing, and job opportunities for the citizens of Columbia. My name is Muriel Battle, and I not only cared for my 4 children, but for 1,000 more students. You see, growing up down south during the 20s and 30s forced people of color to realize that education was the answer. We grew up in our house knowing we were going to college. I went to a few schools during my educational career.
Florida A&M University, Fisk University, Central Methodist College, Lincoln University, and the University of Missouri, Columbia.
You could say I had a broad academic preparation, but when I came to Columbia, I struggled to find anyone who would even sell me a house. I became a teacher at Douglas Elementary School and a social study and department chair at West Junior High School. In 1975, I was appointed assistant principal of West Junior High School. And I must have done something right, because 3 years later, I was named principal of that very same school. I continued to hold many different positions over my 40 years of service, being named the first woman to hold the Associate Superintendent of Columbia Public Schools. I even have a school named after me. And even during my retirement, I continue to work with my community to provide strategies to school districts, PTAs, and juvenile justice facilities. I believe it is all of our responsibility to strive for excellence.
Barbara talk.
1902 to 1992. An American scientist and cytogeneticist who was awarded the 1983 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine.
I was in the woods gathering walnuts to make brownies for my friends just after I heard the news. I had received the Nobel Prize in Medicine or Physiology. Me, a Nobel Prize winner. My work was in taking observations of Indian corn called zeamase, in which I discovered that the genes can change or jump around the chromosomes in ways that did not fit previously known theories of genetics. But when I published my findings in the late 1940s, my peers met it with silence or ridicule. That's why I was so surprised when I heard the news. I had done most of my work alone. My parents had always encouraged me to be independent, but my mother was always afraid I wasn't being feminine enough in my actions or goals. Her fear was that I would become a college professor. But I couldn't help my fascination with genetics. Throughout my entire career, I watched less qualified male researchers gain more prominent positions than me. And I realized that my superiors weren't evaluating me based on my merits, but solely on my gender. I was even offered a position as an assistant professor at the University of Missouri, but even then, prejudices against women in academia kept me from that. So I left Missouri, and I continued my research at the Cold Springs Harbor Laboratory in New York, my lovely little haven for the next 40 years. Even then, people didn't see the importance of my work. They called me crazy, absolutely mad at times. It wasn't until after years of disbelief that modern techniques of molecular biology proved me right. People were saying that my work could pave the way to a possible cure for cancer. If you know that you're right, you don't care, you know that sooner or later it will all come out in the wash.
Laura Ingalls Wilder, 1867 to 1957, was an American writer known widely for her Little House on the Prairie series of children's books.
I'm glad all of you have achieved so much at such a young age. But I think you're never too old to start doing what you love. I didn't write The Little House on the Prairie until I was 62. My name is Laura Ingalls Wilder, and my life was one of little houses and long journeys across the prairie and through deep woods, much like those I wrote about. I am a pioneer girl, however hard the pioneer life could be. Before I began my writing career, I received my first teaching position at age 16, and while I tried to love it, teaching wasn't for me. But there were so few opportunities for women to make their own money back then. I didn't have many other choices. I never graduated from high school myself. So much of my life was riddled with misfortune. From the death of my firstborn to a mysterious fire that destroyed our barn, a drought left my husband and I in so much debt that we had to move from our home. So eventually we settled in Mansfield, Missouri. But even then, we struggled to get any of our trees to bear fruit. I began my writing career as a columnist and editor of the Missouri Ruralist. I realized all I wanted to do was write. I used what I endured to fuel my world of ink and paper.
Exceeding expectations, exaltations in a contemporary world, winning the world over. We have been humble for too long.